sight. Get what we need.
And this is this week's Classic Classic.
You know, he's Italian, for one thing. I think that's not going to play well. I'm Italian, and I just don't think that'll play well throughout the country. He's trying to pass himself off as a Catholic conservative, and where he's been divorced 3 times, I don't see that coming.
I mean, McCain, I think, has been divorced as well, and he was accepted, I guess, more by independents than necessarily by the
His
conservatives.
divorces were not as
Giuliani
well known as Giuliani's.
Yeah, Giuliani just thumbed his nose at people.
You know, I
Right.
can remember.
But,
I can honestly remember. We're all big baseball fans, and I can remember listening to Jerry Remy on Nesson last year talking about trips to New York and how he got sick and tired and bored all day long because all he heard about was, you know, during the day when they were off, was Giuliani's divorces. You know, and he was making a joke out of it, but that was apparently a lead story at the time, and I could see where that would turn people away from him.
Well, another consideration, looking at it as reverse, if New York is in play for the Republicans, that gives them a tremendous leg up in a general election.
Why would it be more in play for the Republicans?
Because
versus the Democrats?
Giuliani is known and liked in New York City, which makes New York in
Hillary's
play.
popularity level in New York? And
Oh,
I don't know. So
she's very popular. She did very well in her re-election campaign. But again, remember, New York City is Democrat. That's where, if you're in New York and you're a Democrat and you don't come out of New York City and its suburbs with, I think, like a 55, 60% majority, you lose. If Giuliani can break even in the city, New York now goes Republican, and the election pretty much is in the bag for the Republicans. Now, if he doesn't, he's going to lose elsewhere.
if she was to be the nominee for the Democrats,
I think
how would it work then?
It's kind of interesting. My sister-in-law is from New York, and she has a lot of family left there. And she was saying that the New Yorkers, since 9/11, have maintained their status as what they were, except in one issue, on security. They are absolutely, as a general rule, not everybody obviously, but as a general rule, they really worry about security. And Giuliani is making that the centerpiece of his campaign. Whether he's the best candidate or not, I'm not going to say, but that's what he's talking about. That's what he's known for. That's
Sure, he's using that as a
right. But if that appeals to the New York, quote, liberal, to the extent that they divide their vote, then he takes New York. And where else do the Democrats pick up that number of electoral votes?
That's a
Ohio,
good
maybe.
point.
Florida, maybe. But those are in play no matter what.
As long as you don't have any hanging chads.
Yes, he was there. What did he do about security in New York? What did he do?
Probably nothing. I don't know.
Other than, he was just like everybody else in New York City. He watched the planes go into the buildings.
He made speeches. He stood up. He was a symbol.
Yeah. He seemed to be able to handle the post-attack. But, I don't know.
George Bush made
what
his reputation basically doing nothing during the attacks. But afterwards, he became a symbol.
Well, that's not true. He was reading a book.
He was reading a book upside down.
You know, that day, in the weeks afterwards, I thought he was doing a good job, but then, slowly but surely,
potato.
He wasn't spelling potato, right?
Can he spell potato?
Where's Dan? What's his name when you need him? If you were to, what role would if Hillary were to run, you can tell she's probably the one that I would lean to. I don't know if I had to, but I haven't made up my mind yet. What role does Bill play in that?
They've already made it clear.
Does he become the first? I mean, he's going to be the first gentleman. Is that if she's elected? But what role does he play in the government?
I think he does exactly what he's doing for George Bush. He goes around. I don't think George Sr. is going to be healthy enough. I mean, he's in his 80s.
Right.
But he goes around and he represents the country. He does negotiations with the Middle East, etc., where he has a lot of contacts. And he can say, if I tell you something, you know that I'm speaking for the president.
Is he a positive or a negative for her right now?
I think he's a positive.
Both.
You think so?
I think he's a positive.
I think people quickly forget what, the trouble that he got himself into. I agree with you. It's probably a positive, but
In when Bush was running for president against Gore, people maintained, and I think it's true, that if Clinton could have gone for a third term, he would have been elected.
And they also maintained that if
yeah.
Gore had used him,
Gore would have
been elected.
Gore played a horrible campaign,
It was
but
awful.
I think Clinton is still probably the most popular single politician in
I
the
think it's
country.
kind of ironic that you got a guy who was really a womanizer, and now you got the possibility of the first woman being elected as president, and that's his wife. It's kind of strange.
Yeah.
It is, but I think, he'd be good for the country because he can repair a lot of the damage that's been done by the current administration throughout the world. He's highly regarded in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And the current administration has done a lot of damage, huh?
Yeah, I would say.
You think?
I would think so.
Tony, you were supposed to be a conservative.
You're supposed to be the conservative. You were appointed as
If
the
you want to talk about faith and morals, I am conservative, but when you get to stuff like this, I'm not.
You mean lying and cheating and,
Right.
and
False
having
information.
false information,
Right.
3,500 soldiers and, all that stuff, yeah.
That stuff about if you support the troops, then you should
Go gung-ho and,
back behind Bush. That's a lot of garbage. If you support the troops, let's get them out of there.
Well, I found it really interesting. They not reappointing the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Harry Reid said to somebody that the guy was incompetent, and that's why they wouldn't support him. And now the administration, who, by the way, didn't put him up for the post, is saying, how can you say that about the man who's in charge of all the operations in Iraq? You're not supporting your troops unless you fully support everybody who's in charge of them.
Do they think that we are just plain stupid?
Yes.
Yes.
Do they think,
And unfortunately,
Remember my favorite statistic: half of the people in the country have below average IQ.
that's right.
You sound like Yogi Berra,
There are a lot of people in the country that believe what they say.
Yep. Nobody comes here anymore because it's too crowded.
Yeah.
You look at statements like that, and you just have to scratch your head and say, "What am I hearing here?" And is the next president going to be any better or any more honest with us?
Well, that's an interesting question. You guys are all old enough to probably remember Adlai Stevenson.
Oh, yes.
In 1952,
You threw us into an old age category there.
I
Come on.
apologize. In 1952, he said, we're going to talk sense to the American people. And they immediately went and voted for Dwight Eisenhower. So, and Mondale, I can't remember what
Walter
year.
Mondale.
He was running in 60, whatever he was running, 72, I think
72.
it was.
No, that was, it was 72.
Yeah.
He tried to say the economy isn't doing well. The reason you have all the stuff that you got is that you and your wife are both working, and maybe some of your kids are working as well, in order to have what your parents had on one income. And he was ignored totally. We're stupid. You
Yes.
tell us the truth, we don't want to hear it.
that depends on who you're talking to, I think. I would think that, I've always said that the American public has a McDonald's mentality. They want it now. They want the solution right now. They don't look long term. They want their hamburger right away, and they want the solution
I agree
right
with that.
now.
Yeah.
They don't look at it long term. I don't know if,
Well, I think that's what happened in, getting back to George Bush in Iraq. I think that's what happened. They thought we were going to go in there and it would have been, it's over and done with. These people are going to love us.
the second George Bush.
the
Yeah.
second.
Yeah.
And not having any knowledge of the area and what these people were like, he led us into a
Subject of
this.
another show. This is, the whole war is a thing that's been going on for 1,000 years, and if people believe that, then they were dumb. They really were dumb, because this is just going on it. And if they had any, and if we supported him then, we were crazy.
Well, I hate to do this. You know how I love to support George Bush,
Yeah.
but he had a chance, I think, to actually succeed. If he had gone in, won the war quickly, he did, and then established control and made it clear that we were in charge, and then gradually built up an Iraqi presence to take over so that there wasn't any organized opposition, it would have worked. But what we did was we walked in with as few people as we could possibly do, and we assumed that everybody was going to love us, and oh, by the way, they were going to organize.
Oh, so whose responsibility is that? That's his responsibility,
Well, yeah,
right?
but I mean, he had
So
the
you-
chance. However poorly it was planned, he had the chance if he had just gone in with enough people.
Well, they fired all the generals that said we need to have 450,000 troops there.
Right.
As I said on the way over, if you're not with me, you're against me.
Yeah.
There were no independent
I might
ideas
agree with
allowed.
you to a certain extent, but he lied about the weapons of mass destruction. And we can always come back to say, well, maybe he was falsely led about that. Then he had another opportunity after they captured Saddam Hussein, where he might have said, okay, now, we realize maybe these weapons weren't there, but we got the big guy. Now we're going to draw the line in the sand, and we're going to say to you people, we're out of here in a year. We've done our part here. You people have been fighting this war for hundreds of years. Now I think it's up to you to establish your own control and make your own decisions. We can't do it forever.
Well, unfortunately, when you destroy everything that was there before, if you have any legitimacy as a world power, then you have to put something in its place, which we haven't done, but we at least are trying. I'll give us credit for
So
trying.
which one of the current
Well-
candidates is going to come up with a proposal to do that? Is it going to be Barack Obama? We haven't mentioned him yet.
No, actually, he
You know,
he intrigues me. I could, based on what I know now, and as you made the point earlier, there's a long time to go. But based on what I know now, I could vote for him because I think he's a leader. But
the only thing I would
yeah.
hold against him is the experience factor.
John Kennedy, we were talking about John Kennedy a little while ago.
Ah.
He wasn't in the Senate a whole bunch longer than Barack Obama when he started running for president.
Right, but he was a rep first.
Yeah,
He was a
he did have
representative.
he did have some time there.
And he was an officer in the Navy also.
You
Yeah.
talk about the experience factor. Do you believe that any one of the four of us could not have done a better job than George Bush?
Could not have done?
Could not have done a better job than George Bush.
Do I believe that? Yeah, yes, I do. We could have all done a better job than
Right.
George Bush.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
forget the experience. George Bush had he had experience as a governor. The amount of time you spend, I discount that.
He had a consultant right at his side, and his father. I mean,
Yeah.
there's
But
What is it-
Unfortunately,
so
he listened
what you-
more to his
what you
vice
need,
president.
what you need is somebody who is actually intelligent. That's what you need, and you have to start picking out the intelligent people that are running. Hillary is intelligent. Barack Obama, he's very intelligent also. You have to look at them and listen to them speak, and see what they have to say, and the kinds of things that they talk about. Are they talking about singular points, or do they see bigger pictures? If they see bigger pictures, they're probably more intelligent.
So it's a process of elimination, you're
Yes.
saying. And so would you back off certain candidates? Some of them, to be honest with you, I watched the Republican, debate the other night, a little bit of it, and I couldn't name 3 of those candidates that were up on the stage there. They were, I mean, your point is well taken. Why waste their, why are they wasting our time doing that? That doesn't,
Because at least I think
just
that
does
the more
not
the
make sense
merrier
to me.
up to a point. But they got to start.
the more the merrier. They were pushing each other off the stage. They were so crowded.
But at some point, if I have somebody, Kucinich, perfect example.
Okay.
Here's a guy who will never make a nomination.
He
will never
doesn't
get.
have a shot at all.
But he forces people to talk about some of the issues that they'd rather not.
And the fact of the matter is, a lot of his ideas are actually pretty good.
Well,
Yeah, he's just not well known enough.
Well, no, he's known. I mean,
Well, I think a lot of people look
Mayor
at
of
him and say,
Cleveland,
my wife looked
everybody
at him and
knows who he
said,
is.
who is this guy? You know, and I explained to her
Yeah.
who he was.
He's-
but-
he
he's the
ran
guy
for
with the
president
tall
4 years
redhead.
ago. Yeah. He's been around a while.
Yeah.
But some of the minor candidates do make a lot of sense. 4 years ago, in the early debates, Mosley Brown, the former senator from Illinois, who my brother-in-law despises, she was well-spoken. She had some great ideas. She wasn't a single-issue candidate. She happened to be female and black, but she was talking about the nation. She didn't have a chance in the world of getting elected to anything, but she provided a lot to that debate. And Kucinich, who I dislike, does a lot as well. He forces people to address issues that if they could sweep under the rug, they would.
There are a few people that you can, just discount.
Yeah.
There's one of the Republicans is the Libertarian.
Mhm.
They've discounted him.
Yeah.
The guy on the far left for the
Gravel.
Democrats.
Gravel, right.
Yeah, he's humorous to have him around, but discard him. The Huckabee, I think he's the
He's a Republican from Arkansas.
and
The fellow you were
and,
just talking.
and he, just one
Yeah.
second, when asked, do you believe in creationism? He's a 7-day person. If you don't believe in science and you think that the world was created in 7 days, please, just get off the stage and go away.
By the way, he wasn't the only one who put up his
I know
hand.
three of the 10 believe that it
I
was.
think it was more like 7 of the 10 who said they didn't
Well-
believe in evolution.
Well, not believing in evolution is different from believing
Okay,
in
good
7
point.
days.
Yeah.
So it's there are some people you can just discard immediately, and I think most of the people actually have discarded them. With the on the Democratic side, there's really kind of only 2 or 3,
Three at most.
Well, Edwards
Edwards
has still survived,
and
which surprised the hell out of me.
yeah, and I like
Another guy we
Biden
never
too
did
because
mention, yep.
he's actually got an awful lot of experience.
I'm
and
sorry, who?
Biden,
Yeah.
but again he's lost it. It was
Yeah.
his time was 8 years ago.
Yeah, his time has come and gone.
Yeah.
What hurts him is that he's so long-winded, as you were saying earlier. Everybody wants everything right away.
Yeah.
They don't want to listen to it.
Right.
Well, Clinton made his reputation talking forever. Remember
Clinton was
about,
more.
what was it, 16 years ago when, or 12 years ago when Clinton did the thing at the convention? No, the nominating speech.
The
for-
nominating speech,
yeah.
right?
He went on forever. It was a national joke.
But he was more charismatic than.
Yeah.
I have to admit that he was a better
Absolutely.
public speaker, and you got to admit that, Ronald Reagan, whether you liked him or disliked him,
Right.
he had the ability to charm people.
Mm-hmm.
He did it.
Well,
So-
and that's why Obama intrigues me, because he's got that.
I agree with you.
Something.
He's a well-spoken young
right.
guy. I just, in the back of my mind, the experience factor, I just say I don't, he does, that's just personally to me, that he just doesn't have enough experience to walk into a situation like he's going to be,
Right.
if he was elected, he would be given.
We're talking about.
I'm rather sympathetic towards the next president. Think of what he's going to walk
Oh,
into.
yeah.
He or she is going to, this is a terrible mess that we're in, and it's not a quick fix. Although we would like to have it as a quick fix, it isn't. We're going to be
Right.
there for another 10 years.
If the next president
at
is
least.
enormously successful, after 8 years, the problems won't be solved.
Right. As a matter of
But
fact,
would you, would you respect somebody that would just say, okay, we're gonna look at the whole war situation and we're gonna make a final decision. We're out of here in a year. We're out of here in 2 years. Would you hold that against them, or
I couldn't vote for somebody that didn't say that.
right? That's what I'm thinking. People are looking for. They're just.
I don't think you're going to see anybody say that.
Well,
well,
Hillary-
actually,
But if
several
somebody
have.
did, but if someone
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
say that, would that be a big factor? And if Fred Thompson had said tomorrow night, I'm going to run for president, and my vow is that we're going to be out of there in 2 years, and he said it sincerely, would that be your final deciding,
no. 'cause
or would
I-
it be one of the key factors?
No, because the Republicans have screwed things up so badly that I can't possibly vote for another Republican. I mean, if Abe Lincoln,
You blame the whole Republican Party then for
Absolutely.
what George has done
absolutely,
I agree with
co-
Paul.
because they
Congress
don't
gave him
because
a
they
free
haven't
pass.
supported him.
the Congress, no,
I mean, have supported him, right?
they've never questioned one thing that he's done in the 6 years that they had any power whatsoever. There was absolutely whitewash and
Well, they
clear
should have
ticket.
after last
And-
November. They should have,
and they, now they're unhappy. I joke with my conservative friend. Now you're unhappy about the immigration that he's trying to push through. You should have impeached him when you had, in the previous 6 years when you had the majority. The Democrats would have gone along with you.
Yeah, and you should have impeached him because he lied to us.
You like to go to war.
He lied to go to war, yes.
What about a candidate who, in this case, happens to be conservative, but has said that what's really happened in Iraq is just a massive snafu, that they're totally incompetent, the people running it, and might say, okay, we're going to look at it, we're going to correct this, that, and the other thing, and
Who's
then we're
going
going
to
to
say
see
that,
what
though?
McCain has already said it.
Yeah, but he's also for building up and winning the war.
Well, yeah,
But so I mean I don't think it's I don't think it's that important. But he said,
yeah.
I think his question is much better. What if some completely unknown said that this is this is important and we have to
And
get
this
out
is
of
where we
Iraq.
draw the line on the sand.
So if Dennis Kucinich said, which by the way I think he may have said, if I'm elected, we're gone.
Yeah.
You're going to give him a vote?
I might consider it.
If Dennis Kucinich were the Democratic candidate for president running against a Republican,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in the
There's the one.
and I was in the booth,
Yeah.
I wouldn't hesitate a second to vote for Dennis Kucinich against any Republican running.
Mike Gravel.
I'd vote for, well, wait a minute. Okay, would I vote for Gravel over
Yeah.
any Republican? Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So,
because the Republicans have screwed things up so much, they do not deserve to be in power for a while, until they get their house in order, which should be about 8 years.
But I'm agreeing
Okay.
with you. They should have gotten their house in order after November,
Yes,
after last November, and we all
they
sent them
should
the
have got
message.
they should have got their house in order after 2004.
Yes.
But the thing is, they all loved the way George Bush was giving tax breaks, having enormous deficits, running up the national debt, continuing this war. They're all benefiting from the contracts that the Bush is giving out. So there are, 160,000 troops in Iraq now?
Approximately, yeah.
Approximately.
Yeah. There are 125,000 consultants there who are earning big money. These
Mhm.
are Americans that are earning big money just for being there. What the heck are they doing? I mean, yes, they're doing laundry at $100 a bag, which is outrageous. For a bag of laundry, it costs $100. They charge $100 for to do
Really?
A bag of laundry for a soldier.
The consultant
Yeah.
isn't getting that $100. Don't worry.
No, but
You think?
but Halliburton is.
Yeah.
I think it's Halliburton that's doing it.
Mhm.
But how many bags of laundry do you think they do a week?
A couple of soldier and consultant.
At
So-
least.
$100 for a bag of laundry.
Unbelievable.
Well, there's not much water there, and it's a
Just
problem.
What?
And-
Yeah, everything's a problem there.
They sent over people in their 20s to set up their stock exchange. People with no experience whatsoever. The Republicans just don't deserve to be in power again.
It's a crazy situation. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
insane.
Well,
Say nothing of these poor soldiers that are over there, and they can't get out. They can't get home. They keep extending their stays there.
well, you talk about lying. Not only is Republican Bush lying to the American people about stuff that he knows damn well by now.
He's lying
aren't
to his
true.
own soldiers.
He's lying to his own soldiers and then saying everybody who's questioning him doesn't support the troops.
And you literally can't, if you're an active soldier, you can't criticize the president.
You can't. You can be
That's that's considered treason.
Yeah, that's why so many generals have had to resign in order to disagree.
Exactly right. So while they're over there, and it looks like they're giving you the rah-rah stuff, I don't think that's really
Well,
honestly happening.
you're not allowed to go and talk to these people on camera because they can be court-martialed and because the commanders are making sure that they pick the guy they want to have talk to
Sure.
these people.
It's crazy, but
Although I have to admit, I know one kid, not so much a kid anymore, but one kid who's been in Iraq and been in Afghanistan and probably going back relatively soon. And he's still fairly gung-ho about stuff.
well, that's not
Yeah,
to
well-
discount the fact that there are
You know,
people over there that are in that situation that do
They
favor it.
believes that they're trying to help the people. And,
Right.
I think every American soldier over there is a hero.
I don't think anybody
But-
disagrees with that
Yeah.
statement.
well,
But-
keep in mind, people our age remember Vietnam, and you have to, and I think the military remembers Vietnam, and so even we who don't agree with this war have to make over and over the point that the soldiers are doing what they're told and they're doing the best they possibly can.
I think
It
for the
ain't their
most
fault.
part, the public has done
Well,
it. I think.
Yeah.
I think you're right. The public has done it, but the conservative talk radio hosts say Democrats hate the soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
Democrats hate the military. Democrats hate the military. They say it over and over and over again.
And that's
every
wrong.
day. Every day.
That-
Every day they say that.
Well, and
that
it's
again
absolute-
is
and that's what's being broadcast back to the troops.
What
Rush
isn't-
Limbaugh says, "Give me some money, and I'll send copies of my show to the troops so they can
there's
hear."
a guy you can trust.
What they don't realize, or
Getting
maybe
medication.
maybe they do realize is they're getting stiffed by the administration. These poor kids are coming back wounded and
Yeah.
mentally disabled.
Well,
not getting
they're
the
coming
services
right. They're
should
not
get.
getting the support that they shove them in the Walter Reed Army Hospital, and I mean,
The worst yet is the people who get out and they don't have they don't realize they've got problems, and
Right.
then later when they go to try to get some help, everybody's trying to save money, so you
It's-
prove that.
it's physical
happened.
issues.
Yeah.
They come back with physical, emotional issues. They got personal issues. They're like I said, their stays are being extended.
Mhm.
Who's paying for their bills when they're at home?
Screw
Where
the
does
bills. I come home. I haven't seen my wife in 2 years. Do I still have a marriage?
right?
Right.
Do I still have a family?
Yeah. Everybody's trying to be as good as they possibly can, but the things change. People go
We had
on.
the
and
little
sudden-
story of the
yeah.
woman up in New Hampshire this week that they considered AWOL for a while because
Oh yeah.
I mean, what a fine story that was.
And
she's AWOL because she's trying to get her kid from an abusive husband.
In defense of the military in that case, when you go into the National Guard, that's one of the things you're in there for. You could be called up and you're going to run into these situations. A lot of these kids have gone into the National Guard, they went in blind. They
6
thought-
years of it, I did it,
6
okay?
okay, 6
But
years,
back in the
and
70s.
It's an easy way to make money.
Yep.
And I had guys, I'm a veteran, I did my time in the service, but guys would come to me and say, why don't you go into the Guard or the Reserves? It's an easy way to make money. You go away for a weekend, you go away for 2 weeks. What happens if we go to war? You go away until the war's over. I says, I've done my job.
See, most people don't realize that. They think it's just like you said, it's another good part-time job, but you really are becoming, you know, that's why you called it a reservist.
Right.
Well,
You
the
know?
National Guard was the last group. They were supposed to be dealing with
But you,
local emergencies.
but you
like
are there,
Katrina.
you are there to support.
But when they're over there, what is it now? 9, 12 months tour
Yeah,
duty for these
what does
guys?
that tell you about the no draft policy? I mean, you know, and I'm not saying that I'm for a draft, but certainly you know, you have to agree that there aren't enough people
Well, that's
becoming
obvious.
interested in making the military as a career.
Yeah.
Right.
The-
And why? You know,
Well-
maybe it doesn't give you enough money. Maybe you're going to get killed. You know.
They keep saying that we're at war, and only a small fraction of the population is doing any sacrifice whatsoever. You know, it's the military and their families. Everybody else
Basically
is
true.
doing just fine, and you know.
Oh, and things are just
yeah,
rosy, right?
Yeah, and we ignore, as a population, we've ignored the military and their
Well,
families.
maybe
And-
there's a hidden factor in there that you know, people aren't interested in joining the military.
No,
Well-
no. You know, the population hasn't been asked to give up anything. You know, they're.
Oh, so you're saying
been no
only a small
rationing,
fraction?
there-
Well,
There's been no rationing. There's been a tax cut for the wealthy, so that they have more money, so the military can go. You know, maybe that was the rationalization. If you cut the taxes for the wealthy, then you can send more military over.
well, yeah, okay.
Well, one advantage of doing that is that you reduce the workforce by 160,000 people, so that employs more people at home.
Yeah, actually, that full employment. Yeah.
Well, how many of those people are illegal immigrants? I'm sorry.
Well, that's
Well, they're
another
not
issue.
illegal
That's
anymore.
another issue.
They're not illegal anymore because.
Oh, we just forgave them, right?
Oh no,
Well,
they do.
actually-
Oh.
They haven't been forgiven. That is not.
That's not cut and dry, is it?
I thought if you join the service, you can then.
Oh
apply
no, the people who went in the service, I think, are on a fast track for citizenship.
Yeah.
But all the people who were working at the jobs that the reservists
Yeah, I was being
and the
facetious.
National Guard were doing, they're keeping the employment figures up.
And they're all going to be forgiven.
No, of course not. Well, actually, it was kind of interesting. I was listening to Bush today, and he was talking on air about the new plan, and the new plan is if you come forward as an illegal alien and say I'm illegal and prove that you didn't commit any other crimes, then you could be basically forgiven after having paid a bunch of fines, etc., and your back taxes, which probably you were paying anyway. They may not have gotten to the Treasury, but you were paying them. And then if you wanted to get into the citizenship, the head of the family had to leave, go back home, come back legally if he could, leaving his family here, of course.
I understand.
And then you had to pay another fine to do that. And then you could get a green card and be 8 years away from citizenship.
And he
And
thinks
the
that's
thing that
gonna work, huh?
occurred to me was, who in his right mind, if he's been here successfully for X number of years,
Is going to leave and come back.
is going to tell anybody? I mean, what's the
Yeah,
benefit?
well, that's right, yeah.
I'm going to stay the way I was.
Well, the immigration problem today is a result of 9/11. Right?
No.
No, no.
Not the immigration people coming here, but all the uproar over the illegal immigrants has a lot to do with the
I think it's
9/11, and they're saying we can keep terrorists out by.
No.
I think they're
Yes, they are.
legitimizing something. It's
I
in
think
those
it's
areas,
tied
they
in,
have
but,
been pissed off for a long time.
The, some of what you're saying is true. There is no border security, so therefore
Right.
anybody can walk through, including the terrorists, and that's the first thing you have to attack. But that's not an immigration problem. That's a national security problem.
That's what they're
that-
making the immigration problem is a national security problem.
But that's
I think.
completely different.
But they're
It
selling
is.
it that way.
They're
They were
selling it
pissed
that
off
way.
before.
But the guys that did 9/11 were all here legally.
Right.
But
Mhm.
they're pushing the issue as a security problem, and that's what they're getting the people all riled up.
No,
We got to protect
No.
these people.
If you look at the history of immigration in the United States, back in the 20s, before the 20s when they passed the immigration law, if you came in and you were healthy and you had some place to go, you got off the boat, they checked you out physically, and then you went to wherever you were going to go.
Right.
And the conservatives in our country were worried that Catholics and Jews were going to take over. And they wanted it to be the same Anglo-Saxon country it's always been. Well, so they passed immigration law, and that immigration law said we're going to have quotas based on who was here in 1900 or something of the sort.
Right.
So that if you wanted to come from England, come ahead. You wanted to come from Germany, no problem. You wanted to come from Italy, not so much. You wanted to come from Russia, forget it. No, nobody comes from Russia because those are all Jews, and we didn't want those people here. That's the same logic that's happening today. If you're Spanish, then you're bad, you're illegal, you're coming in and you're getting on welfare and you're going to the hospital and you're
I
not
agree with you.
working. But it's again, we want to be the same Anglo-Saxon country we've always been and eat our pizza and our bagels and not have all this foreign food.
I agree with you. The conservatives want that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I think they're tying it into national security
Yeah.
to get everybody else involved.
Well,
Yeah, well,
basically the
totally
idea
agree.
is to confuse the subject
That's
so
right.
that people don't know what they're talking about.
That's right. Confuse the subject, and you're right. People don't know what's going on, and you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, if you force somebody in a real debate where question and answer and you can ask the question over and over again until you get an answer to that question, you get some very interesting responses on immigration, for example. I hate to say that I support some of what Bush's ideas are in the immigration issue, but it's primarily the people are here.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of them are contributing members of society, and they're good neighbors. They're supporting their family. They're taking money out of their own pocket and sending it home so their family has
And you
something.
can't physically pack them up and make them go away. It's
can't
not
Yeah.
gonna-
find-
it
If
ain't
you
gonna
can
happen.
find them. Huh?
There's 12 million of them. How can you find a way
Well,
to
how-
find them?
If we know there are 12 million, then you begin to wonder, how do we not know how to find them? If you can count that many.
No, you're estimating, but
Yeah. So we don't know. There's 12 million, there's 20 million, but there's 10
and you
million.
can't
We
make
don't
it
know.
go away.
Right. So anybody who claims they can, there's the old joke about we're going to build a fence across the Mexican border. The problem is that given the money we have, only the illegals can do it. So they have to do it from the Mexican side.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't work, you're going to put a big dome across the country and just make sure nobody pops out or pops in. It's-
And one of my favorite things, a couple of years ago in San Diego, they found a tunnel that had been there for a while from Tijuana into San Diego.
How long were they working on that thing?
It was over a mile long.
Yeah,
Right. Yep.
So build all the walls you want.
because they're going to go underground. They're like moles. They're just going
Right.
to go underground.
And you want a national ID card? We already know that people in the motor vehicle departments are issuing driver's licenses for a fee. So let's get a national ID card so the moment you see it, this person's good, no question about it. And they bought it for a couple $1,000s and everybody's happy.
And what's to prevent graft? People, where were they?
Well,
Was it
Yeah, that's
There were-
exactly.
What, there were 6 soldiers that they picked up yesterday because they were making arrangements for illegal immigrants to come in at a cost.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they were at the, I think they were at the California border between, Mexico, San Diego or someplace like that. And,
Okay.
so they were getting paid to let people come by.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
but we're
They're
going to solve the problem.
entrepreneurs. That's
We're
that's-
gonna, this is,
Hey, you got a truckload of 20 people? Yeah, we'll just look the other way, but you give me $1,000 in cash in the meantime, so.
and you know that's
Yeah.
going to happen in the best of times. There's
Yeah,
gonna
you
be
can
somebody.
drive by while I'm counting.
Yeah.
One.
But-
So what's to prevent something like that,
Right.
It's, I don't know what the solution is. Ideally, I'm of the old school, and I say you should do it legally.
Right.
Do it
I
the
agree
right
with you.
way. What's the problem? But now, 12 million people. How do you enforce a law like that? How do you do that?
Well,
You're in way over your
I've got
head
the
now.
solution.
Here it comes.
First thing you do is you hire 30,000 border guards. If 30,000 isn't enough, then you hired 30,000 more. Spread them out all over the border, because that's a national security problem. Solve the national security problem, then all illegal aliens, undocumented people,
And people with tuberculosis. Don't forget them
no,
too.
undocumented aliens, we'll call them UAs.
Okay.
You issue them an identification card. We talked. Let's call it a blue card instead of a green card. These are people who did not come here with the proper. Anyone, so they pay all taxes. They pay all the tax. There's no penalties going back, so that asking them to pay things.
Who pays all the taxes?
They do. They pay all their own taxes. FICA.
So you enroll them in the economy
Absolutely.
as
They're
if
already
they
in
were
the
green card.
economy. Just enroll them in the economy. They pay state taxes. They pay federal taxes. They pay all of the taxes that everybody else pays. In addition to that, as a payroll deduction, they must have insurance, because that's one of the problems that people talk about, because the only place they can get any medical treatment is at the emergency room. So they have a nationally organized but privately funded.
So what happens if they get denied insurance?
They can't get
Oh, they-
denied insurance. The rates are set by the federal government, and the blue card insurance is taken out just like any other deduction out of their salary. So now they all have insurance. They go, quote, to the end of the line, just like they've been talking about. It takes 13 more years, no matter how many they've been in the country, to become a citizen. So they have all of these things, and in order to that's how to handle the problem. There's no penalties, no fines. I mean, but we recognize the fact that they're here. We've already secured the border by hiring the 30 to 60,000 more border guards, and we can control people coming in again. And that will solve the problem.
I like what you're saying, except for one minor detail, the idea of the insurance. What you're doing is you're providing the illegal alien, the UA,
Yep.
with insurance when there's how many million Americans who can't get it?
No. They're paying for their own insurance. They have to pay for their own insurance.
If they're not making enough money to pay for it, then what?
Then they don't have a job, and they don't.
And then what? They don't have a job, and then what?
They're right back to the square one again.
No, they aren't, because they've been identified.
Right.
You can't ignore them anymore.
Right.
Well, they get deported. So that's not going to happen.
Well, if anyone who hires you're right. I haven't solved the problem yet. It sounds like a conundrum. By the way, anyone who hires people without the blue card, they have to pay a fine if they're caught, and either the general manager or the chief financial officer goes to jail until the fine is paid. Goes to jail until the fine is paid.
So if the fine's $1,000, I flip you $1,000 and hope that the next guy
Yep.
who I also hired doesn't get caught.
Right.
I don't.
There's
Yeah.
a big penalty for hiring. Now,
And that's not going to happen because a lot of the people doing the hiring are just powerful and well-connected people.
But the guy who survived doing something other than washing dishes has papers. They may not be legal papers,
He's
but
got documents.
he's got documents. If he's got documents, according to Bush's rules, it doesn't matter. If I can prove that the guy's illegal by some other means, you go to jail. If you have a legitimate way of looking, I see papers. I have copies of papers. If you want, I'll send the papers to Homeland Security. Mike Bova's papers, Ishmael's papers, everybody's papers goes to Homeland Security. By the way, Homeland Security can't possibly process this stuff. They can't even keep up with the demand for passports. So it's again something where the federal government now is consolidating all the information, and they will use it as they wish, when they wish, for whatever reason they want, as opposed to what the information was gathered for.
As opposed to its original purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
But his plan is a start.
Well, it's a start. It's something to
Or his
as a
thought
basis
is a
of
start.
argument. I don't think that's the solution, but it's a basis of argument. It gives us something in the same way as Bush's plan, something to say yes but about. And from there
With-
we'll get to
Yeah,
better.
but with Bush's plan, the accent is on bringing in high-level workers
Yeah.
to work, and they basically compete with jobs that Americans do want, not jobs Americans, quote, don't want.
Yeah, but in many cases we don't have the qualified people. That's why they're being brought in.
Well, I'm not sure that we don't have the qualified people. And I'm not sure that we actually look hard enough. We don't have the qualified people at the salary that companies are willing to pay.
Okay, there's
Yeah.
some of that.
There's some of
definitely.
that, but I think in some of the fields, we just don't have the qualified people. We're not producing in the areas of mathematics and engineering, the engineers that we need.
You're right. And why aren't we producing them? Because the country keeps sending the engineering jobs overseas. So there's little motivation for
So
a kid.
what incentive is there for a
But
youngster
we
to do
started
that?
sending the engineering jobs overseas 10 years ago, 15 years ago. We stopped producing the engineers to do, at least in the computer field, the work 30 years ago. When I was
Well-
recruiting for Data General, I couldn't, we were desperate to find hardware engineers, and they weren't around. And the ones that were around in the good schools were from out of the country. And
Could
so
you say that for most other professions, though, or?
I recruited in that field, so I can't necessarily speak to others.
No, I think in the accounting fields and the legal fields, we are producing enough. Actually, in the legal field, we overproduce.
We overproduce, yeah.
And yet they're still sending legal work overseas to be done there and emailed back overnight.
Why?
Cheaper.
It's
Because
cheaper.
It's cheap.
And it is the responsibility of the CFO, we were talking about CFO a little while ago, to find the most inexpensive way to get the job done. So he's doing his job.
Right. What is good for one entity may not be good for the whole.
Agreed.
And so therefore, we need to do the other thing I was talking about a long time ago, and that is have a make it here policy where you reward companies that export, give them a 20% tax credit on every invoice that they export. And the corollary is for everything we import, gets a 20% tax.
You know, I might vote for him.
And if you take and to the extent that the taxes you raise from taxing the imports are greater than the ones you pay out for giving the tax credit, that has to go directly to the national debt. Can't be used as general revenue.
But what are we producing? Other than farm agricultural products?
Entertainment and airplanes.
We produce entertainment. We produce. We have a technology, a $45 billion technology surplus, which is surprising, which doesn't really make up for the $750 billion
Oil bill.
Oil bill, yeah.
No, it's not just oil, but it's actually it was most of that goes to China. So we're funding their space exploration. We're funding their national defense. We're funding everything Far East.
Again, history. In
And-
the 50s, 40s and 50s and 60s, we were exporting jobs as best we could in order to make the places that we were exporting them to resist communism. As long as people had work and hope for the future, then they would be our friends, and when they didn't, they wouldn't be. So we, in fact, were doing exactly the opposite of what you were saying. If you could import some stuff from a country that we wanted to help, they were giving you all kinds of benefits. What happens if we stop doing that? Are we going back to the thing that we were trying to prevent?
Well, that's irrelevant right now because we keep hemorrhaging dollars overseas. You cannot survive as a country where your national trade deficit is $750 billion a year. We have to print $750 billion
To cover that.
a year, every year, just to cover that, which means the dollar is worth less and less and less and less and less with respect to
By
other
the way,
countries.
because the dollar is worth so little, our exports are skyrocketing.
There's a correlation there, right?
Yeah, I mean, there is a balance that happens. When we had the strongest currency of all, everything that we tried to buy from overseas, we tried to sell overseas, was so expensive that nobody could buy it. And now it's going the other way around. If we let things continue to slide this way, perhaps some of the manufacturing will come back.
Well, I would force it to come back by that make it here policy.
It'd be
But
pretty hard to force it to come back because you'd have to, the
Well, you have to
infrastructure isn't
train
there.
the people.
We don't have
Well,
the infrastructure
You'd have to
anymore.
train them, you'd have to have an infrastructure.
Well,
Then we're back to our original
where-
question. Which one of your presidential candidates is going to
where's
Well, that's
put a
yeah.
policy in place like that?
Let me just finish that.
Okay.
With where are you going to find all these people to man these new manufacturing plants? Well, the answer is
The immigrants.
that we have right here, right now. Actually give them better jobs.
Those 12 million people, right?
Yes. So you give them better jobs. They're paid at the going wage. They then pay more taxes, and the economy improves. The government has a better chance of balancing its budget with more people making more money, and you're not sending out the cash overseas.
So which candidate is going to make that happen?
Paul.
None of the above.
Sounds a lot like Henry Ford back in
Yeah.
80 years or 90 years ago.
There's nothing
Paying
new.
my workers so they can buy
Kind of.
my car.
It worked then, though.
Worked then.
Yep.
But he also said he'd fire anybody who joined a union. It was his
Yeah,
way
yeah.
or
Or the
Yeah.
highway.
It was his way or the dirt road.
Yeah.
Because there weren't any highways.
So, I mean, there are a lot of people with good ideas. You just have to make sure that you get everybody's good ideas and not just talk to one guy like George Bush or Dick Cheney. I tell you, one of the things that scares me about a lot of the presidents, and one thing I have against
Other than
Romney
Dick Cheney?
is the idea that the Republicans have bought into the idea of the executive being all powerful. And one of the things that Romney kept trying to do here was he kept trying to eliminate all the independent agencies and all the independents,
So that he would have total control.
and he would be totally responsible. And I
So
understand
he
that
would be
logic.
the president of Massachusetts then.
Or he would be the king of Massachusetts.
King of
Well, like,
Massachusetts.
they all wanted to be
Yeah.
Tories.
Yeah. Yeah.
And George Bush, I don't know if he believes this, but Dick Cheney absolutely believes that the executive should be all powerful. And a lot of the things that personally bother me about the way the administration does business is their idea, I'm the president. If I say it's right,
Well,
it's
that's
right.
why we have a system of checks and balances.
But yeah, when you're talking about who do you
That's
want to be
not going to
president,
happen.
But
yeah, it is going to happen. It is happening.
It's happening now.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think you got to remember that George Bush has been quoted as saying the Constitution is just a damn piece of paper.
Mhm.
You don't need to pay attention.
Yeah,
to
and
it.
wasn't there a senator that told him he wasn't king of the United States?
Yeah.
I forget who he was, but
I think it was Alan Specter, I believe it was.
I
a
think you might be
Republican.
right.
Oh, wow. That was one of the few times Specter actually stood up. Although he's beginning to stand up now with Gonzalez.
Well, whatever. Well, that's another night, Mr.
What?
Gonzalez.
The beauty of this thing is the man is incompetent. He's being proved to be incompetent. He's testifying that he's incompetent. And we're saying, we don't care. We don't care.
Why-
That's our biggest problem.
Why can't he be impeached simply for being incompetent?
He can be. I think
It is-
it's never been done.
But
to
you're
my
right.
knowledge.
That's the whole bottom.
You
He's
can't
simply
You can't impeach an appointed person.
But he's not appointed. He's
Yes,
confirmed.
Gonzalez is the.
He's
He's
confirmed.
confirmed.
He's confirmed, but what I mean, he was appointed by the president and then confirmed by Congress.
No, well,
you
he's,
can't
he's
impeach-
not. He's not.
You
He's-
can't impeach,
I think you
can
can.
impeach an elected official, but
he's-
you cannot impeach someone who wasn't elected. He has to be
I
fired.
thought you could.
I don't think so.
That'd be interesting research. Somebody I was reading something which implied you could, but the Democrats weren't ready to go that
But
far.
that's you're right. The whole basis
Yeah.
of it, the fact is that he's just simply not
Yeah.
competent.
Congress would have to get rid of him, but I don't think it's an impeachment procedure.
Well, then
do
what
you-
is the procedure?
What would happen,
Yeah.
what they wanted to do was give a no confidence vote,
Yeah,
which is
that's,
sort of like the British way, and the president would have to fire him.
president doesn't have to do anything based on a non-binding resolution, which is
He
what
doesn't
should
Right.
have to.
No, what I mean is, in order
Yeah.
to get
For
rid
more
of him, the
binding.
president has to fire him.
At this time, yes.
So
I
a vote
think
of
there
no
is a
confidence.
way out of it.
I think
Yeah.
I think you have to do something illegal to get.
I'm not
think
not the constitutional law expert, but I thought there was a way you could.
Yeah, because I
Right.
think impeachment has to do with the president.
It has to do with elected officials.
It has to do with
Right.
elected
Any
officials.
elected official,
Yeah,
even
Yes.
even a
elected
representative.
officials, not necessarily just the president.
The impeachment process seems to be pretty specific to the
I
president.
think if you